with you saying that, you're taking an assumption and a guess.
Yeah, how do you know
Like,
that?
you don't actually know that.
Right. So going back to the point that I was trying to, if we had a better understanding on how these things could happen, then people could be taught and or conditioned accordingly to deal with their situations because they can find understanding and association with it, as opposed to being like, my situation's different, so I can justify my behavior.
If you listen to what she said, she deserved every lick she got. And I'm not sorry.
For context, Jaguar Wright had exposed at the time that she gave Chris Brown a venereal disease and didn't give him the information until at the award show to create a...
After the apology happened, did like the black community just be like, yo, he's not sincere, want this guy, or is it just like an ongoing thing where we're like, forget it?
No one goes after and either deconstructs it to be like, hey, what was the cause of it? What were the things that fueled that aspect? And also, what can we learn from it? A lot of people don't put themselves in the situation and say, you know what, we need to take things into context.
Can men be actually forgiven for domestic violence? I don't think so. Just ask Chris Brown. Today on the report!
Oh my god.
Wow, you did that so fast. Like, Speedy Gonzalez here.
Alright, you want me to slow down and do it again?
No, it's fine.
No.
I'll slow you down post. Can men?
I mean, alright, let's start this thing. I look at it as no, and the only reason why I say that is because I bring up Chris Brown as an example. Reason why I say Chris Brown as an example is because he is practically the new Michael Jackson. We have witnessed this man reach heights only known by superstars of the past, and every single time he accomplishes something, the first thing we say to him is, what about Rihanna? We have never let him move past that moment, even to the point now where his last award show, he was allowed to be a performer on the show. And then when it came down and to find out that Rihanna was going to be accepting an award, they canceled his performance mid-show. Like, it's to a point now where Chris Brown is suffering for something he's done 20 years in the past. And I don't think it's fair, but at the same time, I understand society does not let things go. What are your thoughts?
I think it's a whole bunch of BS. It's a whole bunch of BS. And I'll tell you why. Mm-hmm. Because Rihanna deserved every lick she got. You understand me? If y'all listen to Jaguar, the black lady with the short hair,
Jaguar,
that tells the truth. Mm-hmm. If you listen to what she said, she deserved every lick she got. And I'm not sorry.
For context, Jaguar Wright had exposed at the time that she gave Chris Brown a venereal disease and didn't give him the information until at the award show to create a reaction. That's what Jaguar Wright has said, and that's why he acted in such a hostile manner at the time.
He walked into the house. Like, it was a whole thing, bro. Yeah, so I think that some people will push you to... Now, if you're just beating up your woman for no reason and you're just a drunken asshole, then, I mean, you should just die at that point. But if you're really provoked to a point, everyone's human, you know what I mean?
Yeah, I can see your point.
Yeah.
I mean, that kind of sounds like victim blaming a little, Jonesy. So you kind of have to be mindful of that.
Okay, well...
Yeah.
Hold on. Can I add something to that? To what you just said?
Sure.
Isn't Chris also a victim?
Right? That's what I'm saying.
We'll move past that.
Yeah.
I'm just saying, isn't he also a victim?
Yeah, he's a victim of getting trapped with herpes sent by Jay-Z, bro. Like, that's some madness. I'd be snapping. I'd be snapping.
That does not matter. I'm just asking in the general part. Isn't he also a victim?
Yes.
Okay.
100%.
Yeah,
so I guess kind of like what we're talking about here is like let's give a quick breakdown of like what actually happened and like what's the thing that everyone's like what we're trying to forgive when it comes to Chris Brown. So
okay. Well, on the night of the BET Awards, Chris Brown was on his way to the award show and he was supposed to perform that night. So was Rihanna. What ended up happening is halfway to the award show, they were stopped by cameras with Chris Brown assaulting Rihanna dead way on the highway, punching her in the face repeatedly, and not to mention, like, basically just going off, having a giant argument, and it became a physical problem right for the entire public to see. She then showed up to close to the award show with her entire face bruised up and practically just bruised and beyond recognition. And from there, we've seen the fallout.
Okay, and then I guess my first question is well, first, we don't condone domestic violence, so please don't beat up on your significant other.
Please
but
don't.
Was he accountable? Did he apologize? Was the whole
multiple
tour
times.
complete?
I mean, if you look at it, it's been a 20-year incident. He spent an entire, I would say, almost 5 to 7 years dealing with the issue as a whole, being banned from every single platform there was, being outright destroyed in the media, and not to mention apologizing 100,000 times every possible outlet he could.
But was it like a P. Diddy situation where he apologized and the remorse wasn't really there?
No. He was remorseful, and he's also done to a point of staying out of trouble since that moment happened.
I think that's one of the reasons why it makes it so challenging, because he's the first instance of someone expressing that degree of remorse and a certain degree of understanding. So as much as we can sit here and kind of explain that, people were reacting based off of what people are used to.
Yeah.
So domestic violence is always presented as, unfortunately, men usurping their dominance in a situation and not being able to articulate themselves in any other way but violence.
Facts.
Right? We have seen instances since, such as what's her name? The cheeky
Johnny Depp.
Johnny Depp, thank you.
Yeah.
Johnny Depp in the situation.
Amber Heard.
We saw the stuff with
Can I add one as well? Recently, we actually had this in the add-ons. Dana White and his wife were in Vegas about 6 months ago and come to a brutal blows, slapping each other directly in the casino floor. And the only person that has actually gotten any flack from the incident has been Dana White. His wife was they were both charged with assault. Actually, no charges were met, but at the time they were both being charged with assault.
Okay. So kind of back to what I was saying is he went on the tour, he apologized, and then I guess the next kind of question is after the apology happened, did like the black community just be like, yo, he's not sincere, bun this guy, or is it just like an ongoing thing where we're like, forget it? Like,
well, it kind of goes back to the point that I was trying to do, right? Like, we haven't evolved to a point where we have an understanding that these situations can happen, right? Because even though I mentioned to Jonesy at the beginning of the podcast saying it's a form of victim blaming, that's the knee-jerk reaction that everyone has, right? We need to blame the man and protect the woman. And a lot of times there's no accountability that's put on both sides to be like, sometimes situations get stirred up by both or one of the individuals, right? And it's one of those things where no one goes after and either deconstructs it to be like, hey, what was the cause of it? What were the things that fueled that aspect? And also what can be learned from it? A lot of people don't put themselves in the situation and say, you know what, we need to take things into context and learn how to resolve issues before they reach that level, come to a mutual understanding of both parties. And like it's there's a lot of fear mongering that goes on in society, especially when it comes to how partners deal with each other. That kind of surmises that whole man and bear thing.
So right? I kind of have a question to you before we go down the rabbit hole of the bear again. But my whole thing is it one of those things where like as a community, because I'm just going to point like black people and Latinas as a thing where it's like
we are things, we're nouns, person, places, and things.
Yes.
You know?
But anyways, like one of the things is there an awareness that like it's not acceptable to do this? Because like growing up, like I've seen some incidents of domestic violence in my own life where it's like everyone just kind of like washed it over. Where it's like, okay, it happened, like, you know, your sister or your mom or your aunt got beaten, and then they come to your house and like they're crying, and then everyone's just like, oh, he'll be better, or just take him back, like he's just like whatever, and then it just kind of gets rinsed out.
No, you're right.
Everyone just doesn't talk about it.
I would like to say that it's nuance. The problem that we're having as a society is that a lot of these situations are just like Rose said, we're treating them as a black and white situation without objectively looking at what's happening as a whole. Men and women view things differently when it comes to temper. And the reason why I say that is in a man's moment when he is angry, he is trying to necessarily vent his anger and be less thought-provoking in his head. He is trying to necessarily deal with the problem as quickly as possible and that leads to violence in most cases. When women, from my experience,
Reaching. Continue.
when some situations, like I'm just talking about the domestic violence angle, like I've seen it for myself. I'm not saying that this is every situation, it's just what I have witnessed. Men in those situations, when they don't have the ability to explain themselves, they don't have the ability to actually have a conversation when heated, they reach for violence.
So I have a question here, and it's kind of like, with that being said, what you said, is it a mental health problem?
That could
Or
be
is
an
it
angle.
just...
That could be an angle, because I don't think, okay, the people we are talking about at this point, like look at Chris Brown. You're talking about somebody who is not mature at the time to actually make these type of decisions. When you're talking about guys like, I'm looking at guys like, let's say, the Mel Gibson situation where he was completely inebriated and completely under the influence of things. Like I said, a lot of these guys, these situations for especially celebrity males, they're tending to be either under the influence or short on patience at the time to react this way. They have a lot to lose. You got to think about being a celebrity and being a man of power at that time, and then risking it all to punch somebody in the face, knowing you're not thinking, bro. You're not putting, your brain is nowhere near, you're trying to fix this issue right now and get away from it.
Yeah, so it could potentially go under, like what I was saying, mental health, where it's like as
inability,
men, as black men and as black boys or whatever, it's one of those things where as we grow up, we don't really learn how to like deal with our emotions correctly, and we're not emotionally stable like that.
Yes.
I could say the same thing for girls, because most girls, when they grow up, they're not emotionally stable until they're 90. But
no accountability. No, he's right though. A little no accountability. So
yeah,
I'm with you.
But my whole thing is just like, it could be a thing where it's our upbringing, or our people who are, or it's not just all culture, because like lots of cultures deal with domestic violence, where it's like one of those things where we don't. I feel like when I was younger, like the way we talked compared to like how things are now are completely different. So like back in the day, we talk and be like, oh yeah, you gotta beat a girl and whatever. And I know it sounds out of pocket now, but like in the 90s when I was a kid, that's how like grown people talk.
No, that's literally how we were raised.
Right?
You're raised on that because there was a certain degree of A, authority, and B, like repercussions. There has to be a line where it's just like, hey, your actions are going to lead to something that's undesirable. It's kind of like in general, it's just like people don't steal simply because it's the wrong thing to do. People don't steal because they're afraid of being incarcerated and caught and put into the system. The ramification of being shunned, the ramification of going to jail and all that sort of stuff. So it does trickle down to other forms of self-management or group management. When it comes to the discussionary aspect, I think it's counterintuitive. And one of the things that we're stumbling around this whole thing is being able to communicate effectively and being respected in the same aspect, because we're going through an era where it's just like we're designed to be tough. You know, the simple suck it up, sometimes you kind of have to use your fist to deal with situations and whatnot. That's part of our conditioning. And then when it comes to dealing with a situation, we're getting mixed signals. And I'm not trying to put blame on women, but like when it's just like, do you want a man who communicates? Some women find that as being soft. You want your man to be strong. You want them to be one that can deal with situations right away and assert their dominance in most cases. So it's kind of like, do you want me to do that all the time? Or do you get immunity and being like, oh, you can be soft in every other situation except when I'm losing my mind? That's when you're.
But is that something when you're in the relationship, you set boundaries on that part of it? Or is it like.
But I think it's partially because of the fact that, like you said in our previous podcast, people jump into relationships so quickly that they can't even establish boundaries with their mate and understand that, hey, these are certain things that tick them off, or you know what, I act a certain way, but you know what, my partner might need to talk it out immediately, or they need a little bit of time to decompress, and then we can circle back to the situation. So in those heated scenarios, it sometimes is a conflict on how you resolve it. We're saying how Chris Brown was probably like, I want to resolve this right now. And Rihanna might have been like, well, I already told you what it is. There's nothing to resolve. And it's just like, no, there has to be a ground where we can see eye to eye.
She hit him first.
Right? Well, exactly. There's nothing to
There's
be resolved.
escalation,
It's absolute,
yeah.
right? So it's one of those things where it's just like, in that situation, we have not learned in relationships how to understand our partners and develop those boundaries or those channels of communication. So at various levels, we know how it is, right? It's kind of one of those things where it's just like, you know, you're out with your partner, and given a situation, you can count on them doing something. Whether or not it's simply as like, oh, I know my man pays for the check. Those are certain things that are ingrained in society, but it's just like, how do you deal with conflicts? Like, I have a lot of conversations with my male and female friends. Like, I have my female friends coming and it's just like, my partner doesn't know how to deal with communicating with people all the time. Whenever there's a problem, I'm the one who has to discuss with either the bills or negotiating stuff. And it's just like, that's your skill set. Mm-hmm. But I rather him deal with it. I feel like I'm dealing with it by myself, but that's your skill set. Meanwhile, your partner is good at resolving the situation. If they say, yo, your car broke down, it's going to cost $1,000 to fix the engine. And he's like,
no, nigga, that's $6.
Right, let's deal with it. If you want to negotiate because you're good at doing that, you can leverage your skill set. You can leverage the fact of being a woman. Sometimes it's advantageous to put you in that position. But instead of understanding that, people are finding fault. So if you compound that on higher levels of relationship, of course something of that level would make someone mad, right? Like, you gave me a disease. Bro, that's the ultimate insult. I don't know.
It's okay. Kim Possible over here.
I don't know, bro. I firmly believe you bring home a disease to me that I can't cure, I'm busting your ass.
No, but that's neither the question, neither the yes. It's can society actually give you for forgiveness for an act that you were angry about in a moment? And I think that's 90% of the problem.
Well, I don't think using Chris Brown and Rihanna is a good example in my opinion, because I think she deserves it.
I think the question that we're asking on our end is can we forgive him? And one of the biggest structures one of the structures that we have, and we talked about this off camera, is that as a representation of the community, it's disheartening and disingenuous to see someone falter.
Facts. And
we would rather eliminate that association with that person, opposed to saying, you know what, we're okay with that, because it unfortunately it reinforces negative stigmas about the Black community.
Well, can I ask a simple question here? And I think Jones and everybody else might be able to talk to this one a little bit more for it. How do you balance yourself when you're in a toxic situation and that person is bringing the worst out of you? Like, knowing that is the outcome, knowing that argument is going to lead to physical violence, leading to a bad situation, and that person is pushing every button to get you there. Like, how do you balance yourself at that point? How does a society give you a pass for not allowing you to even know what the circumstance is? Because a lot of people are going through that. They have toxic people as a partner, and that person is literally either gaslighting them or pushing them to a point where they know they're going to react. But he just said it. Rihanna punched him first. So therefore,
she gave him an STD.
No, what I'm saying, she manipulated that situation. Like, I'm not allegedly. She manipulated that situation.
I think
if Jaguar writes telling the truth,
yeah, it doesn't matter.
I think to sum it up, it goes on accountability on both sides.
Yes.
Both parties need to know, A, what they bring and what they're taking from a relationship, but also what their lines are and what the expectations of each other are. If you can't have that, then there's no point in you being in a relationship with that partner.
Facts.
Period.
So hold on here. So I'm going to kind of throw a little bit of a wrench in this one, where it's like, Chris Brown, when this happened, was a grown-ass man. Let's be real here. And as a grown-ass man, like, it's kind of like what I was saying before, where we need to learn to control our emotions. And physically hitting people is part of our emotions. He had an emotional reaction. He raged out, and he probably hit her. The answer to what that is leave.
Yeah,
like, that is the answer.
And I agree with you on that aspect, but we have some scenarios where, unfortunately, people antagonize people too.
But I got fast.
But that goes back to kind of what I'm saying, where learning to control your emotions, it's not something that's easy. I'm not saying that everyone can learn it in 1 or 2 days. It's something that takes a while. Like, for example, Coley always says that I'm really calm. I'm calm for a reason, because I grew up with people who always tried to antagonize me, and I always used to fight. Then I learned there's no point in fighting them, because they're trying to get at me because I respond to their nonsense.
Yeah, but you have the ability to create that situation through trauma. What I'm saying to you is Chris Brown is at a point in his life, and a young point in his life. We're calling him a grown-ass man, but 17 to 18 years old by any we were doing dumb shit. We would never repeat at 18 now.
So what's your
Yeah,
point?
so
It's
you're
okay at that
agreeing with
age?
what I say.
Yes, but I'm also saying that there's a caveat to that. Young men make intolerable decisions based on lack of knowledge.
Yeah,
lack of
but
understanding.
but Chris Brown, you have to remember, he's a celebrity. He's been through it. He's probably been through it with fans heckling him and all the other stuff.
I would actually say the opposite, because he was coddled. I would say that he's had a handler since he was 12.
Yeah, but handlers...
He's been out of the public eye until he was famous, and he didn't have a life before then. He was literally the most sheltered person till he was famous.
But with you saying that, you're taking an assumption and a guess.
Yeah, how do you know
Like,
that?
you don't actually know that.
Right. So going back to the point that I was trying to, if we had a better understanding on how these things could happen, then people could be taught and or conditioned accordingly to deal with their situations, because they can find understanding and association with it, and opposed to being like, my situation's different, so I can justify my behavior, whether or not I'm young, I'm male, I'm female, I'm black, I'm white. Like, there's common denominators that kind of say, hey, we need to have a better handle on how we manage ourselves, like you're saying, Ruggs. But we also have to have a better driver and a degree to kind of go to our partner and be like, these are things that I'm expecting of you, and take that with actual constructive criticism opposed to being attacked, right? Like, we can simply say to our partner, like, I'm not here to put up with no bullshit. So I'd rather us have a conversation about things and deal with things appropriately to have that understanding. But at the same token, there's some extremes. Like, don't go out and grab a disease and bring it back to me, because no fuck's gonna give it. I'm just gonna up and out. Right? Like, you want me to get out, because if I have to fight you, because that would be an extreme, I know that limit, because I would punch somebody over that.
Can I ask you guys a question?
Go for it.
Do we really believe that having these conversations while getting to know our significant other is really going to stop domestic violence, though?
No.
Yeah.
Do we really think that?
I don't think so.
Yeah.
I don't, bro. If a man's going to knock a woman out, no matter how many conversations she has with him, when he's pissed off, he's going to knock her out.
Facts.
But that goes
Period. No matter how much conversations you guys have about it, bro.
Like, this
It doesn't matter.
This kind of goes back to what I'm saying. Like, your emotional being is only controlled by you.
But listen, bro. Everything is gray. There's no black and white. Everything is gray. To me, personally, the Chris Brown situation deserve a bust ass, especially since you hit me first. It's on like Donkey Kong. It's on like Donkey Kong. But
it's not a matter of deserving.
But in the other way, if it was just she was cheating and that was it, walk away. Like, to me, there's certain barriers that have to be crossed before I put my hands on you. But it's always within the realm of possibility
I have a
for me to
question
put
for
my
you.
no. Listen, let me finish. Bro.
Go ahead.
It's always within the realm of possibility for me to knock you out. Like, for me, it's always within. Because if you come with a frying pan and lick me across my head, you better believe I'm gonna knock you out.
Okay.
You see, if a woman is coming at me with a baseball bat, or she's just mad and drunk and acting, if she's drunk and acting a fool and throwing dishes, I'm gonna put her in a chokehold and put her to sleep.
But here's the thing. We're not saying that you're supposed to have that conversation specifically with your partner.
You know what I
That would
mean?
be idealistic. But at the same token, we should be having that conversation, as in, if you were going to act up, there's a possibility that you might get the unfavorable reaction. You can't go around willy-nilly and think that, oh, I can start some shit and there won't be no shit. Like, music said that. Like, it's gospel. Can
I add a caveat to what Jones was asking? And I'm just going to put it as simple as this. Do you think that society is going to give you the excuse, even knowing what the problem is? They've already labeled it out to us as men.
Yeah.
You put your hands on a woman in any situation, regardless. She could have a knife in her hand. We've witnessed this already. We've witnessed men get slashed, slapped, start, punch a girl and get assault charges.
Yeah.
We've witnessed it. So it's society is already giving you the answer to this question. You cannot be forgiven for physical violence. At most, you're allowed to restrain. That's it. Society has already given us the answer to this question. As sadly as it says, literally, that's a societal's answer. If you do not put yourself, no matter what the situation is, no matter how bad it is, if a man puts his hands on a woman, physically, he's going to be in the wrong no matter what the circumstances. It's Bad as that sounds, that's what we have. That's the place we are in society.
As truthful as that is, I think that kind of delineates from your original question. You're asking if society can forgive Chris Brown and people in that situation. Then you're pretty much saying absolutely.
That's why I said my first comment was no. Just ask Chris Brown.
Okay. With that being said, I guess the question to the audience is can you forgive Chris Brown? Because
Yes.
No, here's a better question. Can you forgive your father? Can you forgive your auntie? Can you forgive your cousin? Can you forgive your brother? Can you forgive the men that are in your life for actions
or
considerable or women for the considerable mistakes that they made in their past? Because this is a 20-year incident. This is not something that is sitting fresh. This is something that has passed almost 20 years ago. Has that person paid enough for them to receive forgiveness?
Or is the question really, is it up to society or is it up to him and Rihanna to kind of make the amends? Because at the end of the day, society kind of has forgiven him. Chris Brown's out in the public. He's doing his thing. He's on the radio. I hear him all the time on the radio. He hasn't been canceled or nothing.
That Quavo diss was fire.
So the question really is it society that has to forgive him, or is it him
Or is it
and
a bunch
Rihanna?
of feminist wanks just yapping off their lip like stupid leftists, bro? It's annoying.
I thought you were a liberal. With that being said, peace out.